So hi everyone. Today we will have our final meeting for the orientation program. Our meeting will take approximately 1 hour, and we will review what we've done during this week, and we will talk about we will give a taste for the information that we send you this week. So what we talked about. This week we started with communication culture in Israel. We spoke about the way Israelis communicate, which is by direct communication. Like we started, people probably refer to you by your first name, and you can do the same. Of course, we said that when you speak to your employer, you should ask how they like to be called. It's not necessarily by the first name, but it's also not necessarily they will like for you to call them Ima, Abba, Savta, Saba. So remember that the way we approach is it's by direct communication by first name. Now, Israelis could be pretty loud. They speak with their high tone, body language quite a lot, and they could be very friendly and touchy between friends and family. It's acceptable. But it's very important that if you feel that people getting too close to you, if you feel that they're friendly to you, but it's too friendly for you and it makes you feel uncomfortable, please make sure to put your boundaries and tell them that it's making you feel uncomfortable, or just ask them to stop. And like we said, they can maybe hug you if it's a family member or someone else, or even if they touch you, that's okay. You can ask them to not do that and respect your body and your boundaries. Now, in one of the recordings that we sent, the second one, we spoke about public transportation. Regarding the public transportation, we have a Rav-Kav, a card. It's a smart card, multi-line, which you charge it with money. You put money on the card, and you get benefits using this card. You have 3 different cards: personal, semi-anonymous, and anonymous card. I personally recommend the personal card. Your photo and name will be on it, and some of the benefits you have, beside the discount on every purchase, you get insurance for your money. So in case the card is being stolen, damaged, you lost it, when you go to get a new Rav-Kav, a new card, everything you had on the card will be download and move to the new card. So you have insurance for your money and everything on that card. In case you're getting semi-anonymous or anonymous card, you won't have the option to get insurance, and the money will get lost. So if something happened to the card, you won't have your money anymore. So I highly recommend to get the personal card.
Okay. In our previous presentations, we talked about basic values in the caregiving work. We talked about human dignity. autonomy, tolerance, empathy, compassion, and care. We talked about human dignity, how important it is to maintain a person's privacy and to try to understand what that privacy entails. If it's in his home, his property, things that you don't want to touch, you don't want to touch, his body, his clothes, the way they like to be approached, and again, the way they like to be touched or not to be touched. We talked about autonomy, autonomy meaning respecting your employer's ability and willingness to make his own decisions, even if it's the smallest, part of the day. Always ask, allow them to make the decision, even if they decide every day the same thing. But even then, give them the opportunity to decide. Tolerance, we talked about tolerance, not not making judgments, accepting things that seem to us different and strange. We talked about empathy, trying to understand where the difficulties are coming from in your employer, whether it's disease or other types of emotional and psychological stress and despair. And we talked about compassion, being strong for them and trying to be part of their how should we say it, value of life, and and every day having its own meaning and its own importance, and all of that is part of care. Next slide. We talked about an intercultural encounter. Intercultural differences are difference in traditions, food, norms, beliefs, values, which vary between nations, people, ethnic groups, speakers of different languages. Every culture has its own way of expressing itself. Every culture has its own ways of defining conflict, passing messages, resolving conflict, and talking about it. Every culture has its own ways to express emotions and talk about emotions. And again, we talked about being on a very sharp learning curve for you, okay, to try to understand what the culture of the family that you're staying with, what are their values, what's important to them, what kind of foods they like, what kind of spices, and of course to understand that having a stranger in the home is a difficult situation. Sometimes, even though family.
You want to eat now?
I think you need to turn the microphone off, everyone, so that we can all hear you and not background noises. Thank you. We talked about how difficult it is to have a stranger come into your home, a stranger from a strange country, looks different, smells different, talks different, behaves different, and that it's our responsibility to make our employer feel at ease with us and to listen a lot, and to try to understand what's important and good for them, what makes them feel comfortable, relaxed. And all of that will be part of making the very, very important trust relationship that everything is based on.
All right, so we talk about visas and visas extensions. You can find it on the 3rd and 4th recorded sessions that I've sent. There is a lot of valuable information that you must, it's very important. You must know that information. It will guide you during your stay here in Israel. I won't be able to go over the information, so I'll just speak few things. In your visa, you have geographic limitation. It is very important when you get to work with your employer, or in case you like to change an employer, it is very important to stay within the geographic limitation it's written on your visa. You cannot work in different areas. And so it's important to remember. Now, in case you like to change placement agency, that's okay. Just make sure that if you're changing the employer, it must be within the geographic limitation. Now, you must remember that frequently moving from one employer to the other will be checked by PIBA. So it is very important to work on your relationship. If there are any issues, talk about it with your employer, with the placement agency, and do your best to not change an employer. We will talk about it soon. Beside that, there is a lot of information. Please go back to those recorded sessions and check the information is written on your visa and visa's extension. Now, as I said, regarding the leave or change the employer, for foreign workers who like to leave or change their employer, like I said, if there are any issues, problems, you should talk to the employer and their family and try to work it out. Sometimes there are problems that can be solved and you need to give them the opportunity to try and solve it with you. If you have any problem communicating or you need any help, you should contact your placement agency, your social worker. If you find that it cannot be solved and you need to give them time to figure out how to solve a problem. Can I ask? Okay. So you need to give them the chance to find a solution that will benefit both of you, both sides. If you have any problem there, please contact the call center. Now, after having made a genuine and sincere attempt to carry with your current employer, and you tried your best, you tried to find solutions, and you're still wishing to leave, you must give a prior written notice. It is very important. It depends how long have you been with your employer before you ask to leave. And you can also find that information in the recorded session. So let's go over it. We spoke about the special obligation period of prior written notice in case you like to leave. We spoke about the geographic limitation or change of employment of caregivers. Special supervision of foreign caregivers who have frequent change their employer. Is the requirements concerning registration by foreign caregiver in new placement agency. And I'll add that if you like to change your placement agency, you must check that the new placement agency is registered with PIBA. All right. So they must be registered with PIBA, and following the law, you should check your contract, make sure that the contract is the same as the one you signed before coming to Israel, just to make sure that you're not getting paid less than what you've been offered through the bilateral agreement. Now, due to the COVID-19 situation, it is important to be aware of new guidance of Ministry of Health. So I did send you the links about a week ago when you first arrived. So you have all the information there. They frequently update their website. Earlier this week, I sent you a recorded session regarding the call center. You have the information there. Here on the slide, you can see how to leave a complaint. Beside that, I send you a link, a direct link to register to the call center. And when you get your Israeli SIM card, you should register to the call center in case you're changing your number during your stay in Israel during the time. You can register again and the old information will be deleted. I like to share that the call center is staying in touch with you. That means that if PIBA will publish new information, something that related to you that you must be aware of, they will send you the information and they will stay in touch with you.
Okay, so again, some of the things that we spoke about, building and developing the relationship with our patient or our client. So there are several steps involved. We spoke about creating good communication. And of course, good communication means speaking directly, having eye contact, short sentences, direct messages, and of course, smiling, right, everyone? Can't have any kind of relationship without smiling. Very important. We talk about also, of course, the nonverbal communication, how important that is. Involves all of our senses, especially the listening and the observing ones of how people respond to us without words, right? Just with gestures, tension of the body, tone of voice, and so on. We talked about coordination of expectations, to talk directly and very sincerely about needs and desires and what our expectations are, and also to be flexible and to hear what the needs and expectations and desires of our employer, and to first to listen, not to say yes or no, but to listen and to know what they expect, and to wait a while, and then to see what works out for you, and of course, what does not. Most important word is being very flexible and being on a learning curve. Building trust, we spoke about building trust, how important that is, and once trust is in some way compromised, very difficult, if at all possible, to regain trust. So we must be very careful not to break the trust between us and our employer, and of course his family. And we talked about the caregiving alliance, right? How it's a joint effort to make our employer comfortable, safe, and be part of his well-being. And we talked about taking into account social and cultural components, right? Being part of their life means learning a new type of life system, right? Being part of a Jewish family is very different, something that if you haven't experienced, and Jewish families function very differently depending on their background, their religion, their education, and so on and so forth. So it's all very interesting, I hope, for you. And of course, for you, it's going to be a new experience living in Israel with all the different smells and tastes and so on. And hopefully will be a good one. So we talked about tools for effective communication, right? Understanding how others communicate can be the key to getting your message across to them. In order to develop effective communication style, here are a few tips to keep in mind. And of course, we talked about the different types of ways that people in their own personality communicate. We talked about passive communicators, aggressive communicators, passive aggressive communicators, and of course, the best way to communicate is to be assertive, straightforward. We recommend that you take ownership, use the I statement, say what's in your mind clearly and honestly. Maintain eye contact, very important in communication. We say that, the eyes are the windows to our heart. Voice your needs and desires confidently, and don't forget to smile. Have to say that with every other sentence. You gotta smile. We talked about being an active listener, very important. Sometimes if we don't understand a person because of language, because of culture, if we really listen and we want to observe how they're responding to what they're saying, sometimes we can understand that. We want to be able to affirm a person's comments. Sometimes we repeat what they say. And of course, we don't want to make any judgments. And that brings us to reflection. In order to make sure you understood what your patient or client meant, you try to reflect by saying, I see that you said so-and-so, ask more questions. And is this what you meant? Empathy, very important. Try to empathize with your patient. Try to understand where he's coming from, what he's feeling by understanding his background, what his hardships were, what his accomplishments were, who are the people that were important in their life, who is there, who does he long for, and so on and so forth. Of course, the I message is very important. Bring yourself to the situation when you talk about your opinion and thoughts, use the word I, okay? Because this is who you are. More tools for effective communication. Keyword, lots of stars next to the word patience, right? Be very patient with your patient, and I emphasize his family. Most people live in a community of some type, family, friends, and so on. And all of those people will be part of his life and also part of your life. And try to engage them, be proactive in engaging them, learning who they are, how to communicate with them, and they will help you along the way, okay? The situation is new to them as well as to you. And it's very important that you do the process of getting to know each other. Share, and that way people will share with you. Tolerance, 4 stars next to tolerance. Even if you don't agree with your patient, try to respect his opinion. It's okay to disagree, but of course, we have to know what they're thinking. And of course, again, the nonverbal communication, which is so important. When talking to a patient, maintain eye contact, try to speak at eye level, not above him. Talked about what above means. Sit next to them, in front of them, not above them. Relax your speech, calm your tone of voice, and of course, use I messages. And smile wholeheartedly. Tips for creating good relationships. Be mindful of how you start a conversation. Ask open questions. Use the I statement. We keep repeating that because it's very important. Be specific in the message that you want to transfer, okay? Very specific, short sentences, okay? Give others the attitude that you want to receive. I think this is the most important message that we all have for each other. If we treat others the way we want to be treated, I think there should be no problem in any kind of relationship and any trust relationship. Before you go on to culture shock and adjustment, Anat, I just want to say one more thing about COVID. You know, the whole world is again anxious about COVID. And what does that mean? I think everyone in the world right now is talking about it, dealing with it, trying to, you know, everyone dislikes it. We thought we were maybe already out of it, and now we're back into this type of uncertainty of what can happen to all of us. First of all, I want you all to know, if you don't know, that Israel is one of the most safest countries, very attuned to public health. We have a wonderful health system here in Israel that you're going to be part of. And of course, I think if you don't know, you must know that the vaccines and the government and everyone is very much into protecting our citizens, and not just our citizens, but anyone that lives in Israel is also under this protection. So that anything that can be done will be done for everyone, including you. That's the one thing I want to say. And the other thing I want to say is, again, you know, this COVID situation for the last 2 years and going on almost more is brought so many bad places for people, especially homebound and people that are, you know, disabled, being detached, being introverted, being perhaps afraid to be in touch with strangers or even with family members, children and grandchildren. Perhaps, you know, all of those situations are causing isolation. And on the other hand, so much of our life has become online. Universities, every aspect of our cultural world, every aspect of our intellectual world, every aspect of our interaction has now been online. You know, schools, I can't, you know, everything that you think about and that you touch is now available online. So what does that all mean? That means that you have a very powerful tool when, you know, in yourself, if you didn't know it. Not just be kind and good-hearted and a good caregiver, but also a facilitator, okay? A facilitator, I'll use that word, which means that perhaps some of your patients, clients are not so savvy on the use of the computer. And I think this will be a very big help if you allow them to, like we are all reconnecting right this minute by Zoom and by other means of the internet. And so perhaps you can also assist them to reconnect with places of culture, of, you know, anything that is interesting to them to make their life richer through the internet. And so take that into account, that this is an additional task on your list of things to do. Find out what they like, what's important to them, what they did in the past, and perhaps reconnect them. Of course, with family and friends, obviously, but also from other aspects that are so important for all of us to feel good and to be part of this world. Okay, that's all. Go ahead.
That was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for the addition. It was very good. Thank you.
Now for culture shock.
Yeah. So trying to adjust to a new culture. It's not an easy thing to do. And some of you may experience already or right now a culture shock. It can be hard to adjust to the new culture, and everything is new. The way we speak, the way we talk, our food here in Israel, it's so different, and we're loud and not necessarily polite all the time. And you're close and you're far from your loved ones, back at home. Your routine is changing, everything is changing. It's probably not easy for you. And for some of you, it's their first time working abroad. So I like to invite you to simply be a tourist here in Israel. This is an exciting part of your life that may not return. You came here to Israel, which is a wonderful, warm country. And I ask you to just be a tourist. I think it will be the best way to try and adjust the culture, the language, the beauty of this country and the time you'll be working here. Travel, learn as much as you can. You can travel around the country, you can travel, just walk around in the area where you live, talk to people, try to study the local language, get to know the language, learn Hebrew, even if it's just few words a day or a week, basic words. And after that, you'll get to know other words. But get comfortable with Hebrew, with the sound of the language, and develop a social life and meet the new people. If it through your employer, you will meet new caregivers. You can meet people on the street, on the supermarket. Get to know people, find friends, maybe friends for life. And you can assist them and you can ask for them to be your friends and assist you. I think it could be wonderful while you're staying here and even after to share your experience and everything you will go through. It's wonderful to have friends. Besides that, you have the community that you built with the other caregivers who arrived here through the bilateral agreement. You have a lot of power in a big community and I believe supportive community. So it's good to have that and try to maintain those relationships. Besides that, I recommend to be proactive about your physical health. Pay attention to your diet, hygiene, get regular rest and exercise and relax. Make sure that you have that time for yourself. You're not doing an easy job, and it is very important to have a daily routine where you can find some time to yourself, to your thoughts, and everything I just mentioned. Besides that, I recommend to keep a diary or a blog on social media and share your experience and talk about it and laugh about it. If you're using social media, we asked you yesterday to just pay attention to the fact that we need to respect the employer and their family. Please don't publish their photos online or on video unless you're getting the approval of, if it's your employer, in case he can give his approval, or their family. Okay, you need to put it to pay attention to the part where you not publish their faces and what you do and the actions, and like we've seen yesterday with Nympha, we need to respect their privacy. And besides that, keep in touch with the family and friends and events back at home. Try to stay present. Now, regarding those long distance relationships, it is very important to communicate with the family. So we recommend to set a specific time, if it's a day or an hour during the day, to contact them, to stay connected. I recommend on video call or a phone call, not only text messages. If you have kids, I recommend to you can wake them up in the morning, talk to them before they go to sleep on a video call, read them stories before bedtime, or check how was their day, help with homework if you have time, while your employer is asleep, or if you can stay in touch, okay? Maintain those relationships. Those relationships are very important. They are there for you, and you came here to Israel to work, give them a better future. But it's not enough. You must maintain those relationships. They're the one to support you, and you need to support them as well while they're living their life. They stayed back at home, and they need your support as well. So it's a youth support system, and it is very important to maintain those relationships. And if you have events back at home with your friends, ask them from someone to stay with you online and take part on those events if possible. Make sure to do that. Now, we didn't receive any questions, not by the time that I checked. So I like to ask you, do you have any questions, concerns, thoughts, something that you like?
אני רוצה רק להגיד שאתם עושים עבודה מאוד חשובה. ויפה מאוד שאתם מסבירים לעובדים והם מבינים מה התפקיד שלהם. אני מודה לכם.
תודה רבה לך.
תודה, באמת תודה.
תודה לכם.
תודה רבה.
Anyone have
Bye.
questions or comments or like to share something?
No, maybe thoughts, concerns. You will have the opportunity to ask again on the Viber, on the chat, or a private message. That is okay as well, of course. All right, so we will continue. So I'll go back to the call center. Well, I said we stay in touch with you. We will send you valuable information, anything related to you that people may publish or may update. Here you have the registration link for the call center. You can see the contact number for the call center. And of course, we're available on the Viber group. Final words? Is there anything that anyone likes to add? We love to see your faces for a glimpse of a second.
There we go, girls. Okay, let's all have a nice smile before we say goodbye and wish everyone
you so
good luck.
Okay, Lina.
Thank you, Mama.
Mercy.
Enjoy your stay in
Anna.
Israel.
Thank
I
you,
have to tell
Sarah.
you, if you don't know, today is the 4th night of Hanukkah, our candle lighting celebration holiday. We celebrate miracles. Every day is a miracle for each one of us. I wish you all well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mom.
Thank you,
Thank
Miss Sarah and Anna.
Thank you.
Be
We
well.
really enjoyed meeting you. We wish you the best, and we're still here for you. if you
An
need anything.
exciting time for you all, ladies. Do a good job, and you'll be very rewarded for it.
We wish you the best. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ma'am.
Bye.
Nervous na nervous.
Ano ba sa atin na